Please welcome Irvin Mayfield and Dee Dee Bridgewater. Keeps the wallet connected to me, which God knows in my case is important because there's not much in the wallet. But that's another story. Okay. First of all, thank you both so much for being here. Very much appreciated. Tell me, how did you guys meet?
Tell them.
I get the feeling we know who's going to be in charge this evening. But
she's very domineering. Have you seen 50 Shades of Grey? She's the female version.
Already I've lost control of this, but that's okay. That's all right, no problem.
I didn't read it.
You live it. 50 Shades of Dee Dee, which is all about the record. So if you're here tonight, pick it up. Let's see, we met, well, first of all, I, like I imagine everyone in this room, am a fan of the greatest living jazz vocalist in the world, Dee Dee Bridgewater. And I used to pick up her records when I was in high school, and I always loved the cover of her records. Yeah. And so I said to myself, I said, one day, I'm going to get an opportunity to be next to this beautiful, stunning, sexy woman. And I got that opportunity several years later, working at the Minnesota Orchestra. And some kind of way, hell over high water, we convinced some people to get us Dee Dee Bridgewater there. And she came down, and she just took it to the next level, which is very difficult to do with a symphony orchestra in a 2,500-seat orchestra hall. But I come to learn that I thought Dee Dee was just having an amazing night that night. I can't lie to you. I thought, sometimes you go to a concert and sometimes people are just lucky. And I thought it was one of her lucky nights. And so it was so amazing. I said, well, let's see if we can convince somebody to allow us to get her to New Orleans. So the spirits came together. She came to New Orleans, and it was another one of those lucky nights. And then I'm going to tell this one story, and I'm going to land my plane. Folks always ask me, what's the greatest performance I've ever been to? And I've seen some amazing performances. One was George Clinton. One was Nina Simone.
That'll do.
But the one night that Dee Dee Bridgewater was in the audience in this club in New Orleans on Bourbon Street, she was sitting there, and she had a cold. And she was singing the next day at the Jazz and Heritage Festival in New Orleans. And so I invited Miss Bridgewater up to come and sing a song with us. And she said, well, I'm a little hoarse, I have a cold, I just want to sing a blues. And she did a selection from her Eleanor Fagan record, the Billie Holiday record. We did Fine and Mellow.
Is that what we did?
That's exactly what we did. Well, that's what we started with. And I say that's what we started with, but we only did one song. And so Dee Dee got up and she sang a blues. She wasn't feeling that well, so she only sang 2 or 3 choruses, and she sang the verses just like they were, and it was very polite. And so, of course, being from New Orleans, most people in New Orleans sing. If you play an instrument, you can carry a tune. It's kind of a requirement for drunkards who come to clubs. So this was one of those nights I said, oh, she's kind of gave us a little polite performance. I'm going to just have a little fun, and I'm going to sing some old nasty dirty blues lyrics that I learned from all these old men in New Orleans. And so I took the microphone and I started having a good time with the audience. And I sang some of these old dirty, nasty lyrics that people sing in New Orleans. And the audience just got a kick out of it. And I thought I would get off scot-free, and we then, Dee Dee would go sit back down and we in the set. So Dee Dee then took the microphone back. And she started making up lyrics. Now, and it is. This was true. She did have a lot of cognac or whatever it was she was having that night. And she took the microphone in the first chorus. She came up with lyrics. The second chorus, the third chorus, fourth chorus, fifth chorus. Now, when you get to 10 choruses and you're still making up lyrics, she sang, and I kid you not, I swear to you, 30 choruses that night. No. It was so amazing that when we got done, the audience gave us a standing ovation, and the gig normally ends at something like midnight. We ended the gig at like 10:45 because we just said we just gonna sit down and drink and party because there was nothing that could be done after that night. That's why I had to do a record with Dee Dee Bridgewater.
And your memory of that would be?
No memory. I remember going into this club that a dear friend of mine in New Orleans said, "Oh, we've got to go down to Irvin Mayfield's club, the Jazz Playhouse." Well, we had already started our evening, and we were feeling no pain. In fact, we left my girlfriend's husband at the house. He said, "I'm tired, I gotta go to bed." We said, "We're going out." And so when we walked into the club, I just remember I was stuffed up. I but the music. The problem with New Orleans is the music. And the music, and they were playing and the rhythm was going, and I was like, ooh, I like this, I like this. My memory is not you inviting me up. My memory is me coming up. Now, did you really invite me up?
Yes, I invited you.
Because my memory of every time I go to New Orleans is I go into Irvin Mayfield's Jazz Playhouse and I bogart the stage. It's the only city in the world where I will go and take over somebody's gig because they're playing too good.
Well, let me ask you about that because you're actually. I think these people have been at the bar.
They know the bar.
Yeah.
I think they know the New Orleans bar.
You've actually been quoted as saying that you are a totally different animal when you go to New Orleans. Why?
I am.
Why? What is it about New Orleans?
If I knew, I could control it. I asked them, I said, is it something in the air? Is it something in the water? What is going on? Because I lose my mind. When I go to New Orleans, I don't know. I never sit in. I swear. Anywhere in the world, I'll be like, no, thank you. No, thank you. In New Orleans, the last time that we were in New Orleans, we're sitting at the bar, in the Playhouse, and I go, Irvin, you think I can sit in? Who was that was playing? James Rivers. He said, go on. So I go up and I'm saying, you think can I sit in? He says, oh, Dee Dee Bridgewater. I said, next thing I know, James is tapping me on my shoulder like, Dee Dee, it's my gig.
It's true.
I don't know. It's something about the New Orleans rhythm. It is something about the energy that I feel whenever I'm in that city.
Yeah.
That just speaks to my soul.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of that, so this record is very much about New Orleans, the 10th anniversary now of Hurricane Katrina. And I'm wondering, for both of you, why was it important to do something to commemorate the storms?
You are the child. You are the native child.
Well, I think that, one, we really didn't plan the record to culminate with the anniversary of Katrina, but I think it was something that spiritually came together. The funny thing is people say, and if you're from a town that's very parochial, and there's no doubt that New Orleans is a very parochial town, people say, well, if she's not from there, what does she have to do with that? And the first thing I would say about New Orleans is that Dee Dee Bridgewater is the living proof that New Orleans is an idea. in jazz is an idea. And we both believe in music having the ability to make people feel better. And when we think of all those great New Orleanians, Louis Armstrong, Jelly Roll Morton, Kid Ory, Sidney Bechet, despite the difference in their personalities and what they've accomplished as musicians, they all have created music that when you put it on, it just makes you smile. I was listening to Sidney Bechet's version of Summertime that he recorded in Paris the other day, and it's just quite stellar what he accomplished. And I think when you listen to Dee Dee Bridgewater, you have a hard time not smiling. I happen to notice even when Dee Dee Bridgewater listens to Dee Dee Bridgewater, she has a hard time. I just tested this.
Only this.
I don't know.
Only
I don't
this
know.
album.
I listen.
Only Dee Dee's
We
album.
listened to Red Earth in the car,
Well, that's true.
driving together in Europe. And I test this, right? I put on a little Michael Jackson, and I put on a little Bill Withers, and then I put on some Bob Marley. We just did this, by the way.
Little Isley Brothers.
Isley Brothers. We put on some Wycliffe, some Mary J, some Lauryn Hill, and then I throw in Dee Dee Bridgewater. And I watch, and sure enough, she starts tapping her foot. And that is the goal of every musician. Of course, being a jazz musician, we want to translate all of our ideas, which may be simplistic or complex, but rich. We want to be able to speak clearly with our instruments, whatever they may be. But every musician, no matter the genre, aligns on the fact that we want people to smile and feel embraced and hugged and loved by our music. And it's something you can't make people do that. So I'm just watching. She's my test audience, she's my focus group. And I put it on. I don't say anything. I just play stuff. And we just did this upstairs. And I put it on, and sure enough, she starts just grooving, dancing, which is a testament as to why you all need to purchase the record tonight.
So let me, great quote of yours. You said Dee Dee gave us an opportunity as an ensemble to go back and explore New Orleans music at the highest possible level. What is it about Dee Dee that brings that out in you?
Well, the first thing is that Dee Dee Bridgewater is the best living jazz singer in the world, and I would say she got started with Thad Jones and Mel Lewis. I mean, that's what she got started, right? She's a titan. She knows the sound of Dexter Gordon. She knows the sound of Herbie and Wayne Shorter. She knows the sound of a lot of folks outside of jazz. She's not only a jazz singer, she's an artist extraordinaire. She's an actress, a thespian, and she's a poet. So when you're working with the artist at that level, every artist aims to be a poet in what they do. Everybody wants to get to the poetic level. Every writer, every musician, every architect, every design person, that's where we all aim to be. And Dee Dee gave us an opportunity to do that for a couple of reasons. One, as a leader of a big band, she just understands how to move a lot of people seamlessly. It's not easy. Very few people can do it, and I recommend any musician who wants to go to the next level, work with a big band. It will help you. The second thing is that, if we'd have did a record of New Orleans songs, no one would have been flabbergasted by that. They'd have said, oh, Irvin Mayfield and New Orleans Jazz Orchestra just doing these songs. But when we do these songs with Dee Dee Bridgewater, we had an opportunity to make people have a different vision of these songs. And she forced us to think about the songs in a different way. First thing Dee Dee said was, I don't want any just old run-of-the-mill songs. So every song should be done different, it should be done special. I don't like to do what anyone else is doing. I want us to do what we can do. That was the first thing. Second thing is she said from the cradle to the grave on the record, she wanted the entire record to be touched by New Orleans people. That was very informative and very interesting. And what she meant by that, even the people doing the makeup, even the folks doing the design of the CDs, where we recorded it, everything literally from the cradle to the grave, 100% of the record was done in New Orleans. And that's just a testament to the type of artistic sensibility she has and the type of love she has for her audience.
So tell me, Irvin, and I gave a little bit of his background in the open. It's remarkable. It's deep steeped in New Orleans history and culture and music. What did he bring to you in bringing this music out?
Oh, he baptized me. He baptized me in the waters of New Orleans. He baptized me in the history of New Orleans. He baptized me in just the lifestyle of the city, just the love that is shared between everyone in this city. I have to say that this young man sitting next to me is quite extraordinary. To be so young and to have such a deep love for his city and for the history of his city. Irvin Mayfield can sit down with anyone and talk about the history of New Orleans from the beginning, from the inception, from the time that they brought the first slaves there, from the time that the slaves were emancipated there before they were emancipated in the rest of the United States. He knows all of these stories. And when we go places, he can point out, well, this is what happened in this area. This is what happened in that area. That he thought it necessary to create a center devoted to jazz, which is what is considered to be the focal point of New Orleans. New Orleans is considered to be the birthplace of jazz. And that he and his partner, Ron Markham, who is here in the audience, would have this vision to create what is now today, as of April 3rd, the New Orleans, well, the People's Health New Orleans Jazz Market that is placed in Mid-City, which was an area where a lot of jazz musicians were born, which is also an area that has suffered a lot since Katrina happened. That he had the vision to place the jazz market in this area, which now has brought other corporations to this area. They now want to build in this area because they see this incredible institution that has been created there. That he created the New Orleans Jazz Orchestra after Katrina because he felt that this was something that the city needed and that this was something that would bring people together. I just find him to be quite an extraordinary young man, and he's a very sly devil.
Well, and I want to come back to the jazz market and the jazz orchestra in a minute. But as you guys were recording this, if I understand correctly, the intention was not for this to be some kind of commercial release.
No.
So tell me about the vibe in the studio.
Oh.
And how, as you started to record it and listen back, that changed your thinking.
Well, I mean, the thinking changed after we had finished recording for the 3 days. But the original idea came about when we had done the groundbreaking ceremony for the New Orleans Jazz Market. And in the evening, I said, you know what, Irvin? We need to record something. We need to have a product that we can sell at the jazz market that will show the people that I am really dedicated to the jazz market and I'm really dedicated to New Orleans. And, you know, they can walk in and they can see this and they know there is a reason why there is this Irvin Mayfield New Orleans Jazz Orchestra, or NOJO, and Dee Dee Bridgewater thing going on. And they can pick it up and they can listen to it and they go, oh, we get it. So that is what took us into the studio. And it was literally 1 month from the day that I said that to this man. This is how this man works. I said, oh, we should do this. And then, I don't know, I go home the next day, and then 2 days later, he's like, Dee Dee. He calls. Dee Dee, I got these songs. Listen, what do you think about this song, this song, this song? I'm like, okay, this is cool. I don't know that song. And then the next thing I know, he's giving me the history of the songs that he's selected. Well, I think this would be a good song to do because of A, B, and C. Okay. And then the next 2 days later, I think it was, okay, Dee Dee, we need to get the keys for the songs that we chose. I'm like, who is this child? And so then I give him the keys. He's got his piano and he's on the phone and he's playing this, and I'm like, okay, no, that one a little lower. And we get the keys. And literally 3 weeks later, I'm flying down to New Orleans to record an album. Arrangements have been done. Now, if I was doing an album, say for example when I did the Dear Ella album, and I said, okay, I want to do this song, and I hear it as a big band, and so I would contact somebody, and they would say, okay, well, I'm gonna need about 6 weeks. Okay.
That's just for one song.
For a song.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, for an orchestral piece, okay, well, I'm going to need a couple of months. Oh, okay. This will work, No. 3 weeks later, I'm in the studio, and they're playing the stuff for me, and I'm going, oh, I like that. Oh, ooh. And the beauty of this project is that we recorded this album with complete freedom, because we didn't have this idea of a commercial product over our heads. So you'll hear extremely long intros that you would not hear on a commercial product. You hear us warming up and playing around on the intro to a song. You just hear all kinds of things, and you hear me, I'm singing in all different kinds of voices, which is something that I do when I perform live,
Sure.
but never when I'm thinking about recording. When we did Big Chief, we recorded it, and I said to Irvin, I'm going to sing it like Dr. John, because we didn't know if Dr. John was going to do it.
Well, and let me stop you there. So you actually got to record with Mac on that, on that track.
Oh yeah.
Tell me a little bit about. I mean, he obviously
About Mac?
Yeah, working with Mac in New Orleans.
Oh no, well, I've worked with Mac outside of New Orleans. Dr. John had contacted me in, I think it was like 1994, and I was still living in Paris, France, and he wanted me to do an album with him. And I was like, oh, and I was like, yes. And then I said, so when? And then he gave me the dates, and then I went, I can't do it. I had a tour. He said, well, baby, that's the only time I can record it, And I was like, I can't do it. So then we fast forward, and Dr. John contacted me a few years ago and asked me to be involved in a concert that he was doing. And then, was it a couple of years ago, Thelonious? Yes. That we did the Props for Pops at the Hollywood Bowl. And then I went and I sat in with him and turned that phone off. Put it on silent, put it on silent.
I'm glad
something.
she said that.
Come on, find it, get it. Get it? We're embarrassing you. They got it. Okay. Oh no. You got to get up and go out. But at any rate, he was in Las Vegas. Baby, you got to get up and go out. Really, I'm serious. In a nice way. Next thing I do is turn the spotlight on you. He was in Las Vegas, and so I went to see him, and then he invited me up on stage to perform with him, and then when this happened, I didn't have the nerve to ask Dr. John beforehand, and so when we were in the studio and I'm gonna sing it like Dr. John, because his version of Big Chief is the version that I had heard, and so then after we recorded, I said, maybe I should call him. Maybe I'll give Mac a call. And Irvin said, call. So I called and I did, Mac, it's Dee Dee. How you doing, Mac? Oh, Dee Dee, I'm not. Mac, I got a favor. I'm recording Big Chief, and I would love for you to come in and sing it with me, do a duet. Oh, Dee Dee, I'm not feeling. Mac, we'll pick you up, please. Please. I gave my best little girl voice, and 2 days later, we had him in the studio, not feeling good. He was not feeling good, and we got him in there, and he did it. Well, I felt like he had to be a part of this, because for me, Dr. John is synonymous with New Orleans, and with my knowledge of New Orleans.
Sure. Obviously when you take on something as wide and deep as the history of music coming from New Orleans, how did you choose the material?
Well, I think the first thing about music is that music is not a history lesson. And at the end of the day, you're gonna love this record because Dee Dee sounds amazing. The rest of the shit doesn't really matter. It's absolutely true. It's all about what it sounds like. And
Yeah, but the songs that you picked.
of course, we selected songs, but to be honest, Dee Dee and I have now been together for several months and on 4 different continents in 15 different countries. She's definitely taught me the art of touring, no doubt about that. I'm used to doing like 2-week tours and going back home for 3 months. So I'm still adjusting to that lifestyle. It's impressive for a woman who's 36 years old. and every night, it doesn't matter what she sings. She could sing Mary Had a Little Lamb. It's amazing. And that's why her name is Dee Dee Bridgewater, and she's in this museum right now, and she has 3 of these awards because that's what she does. And I think with music, you can spend a lot of time researching, and you can spend a lot of time doing the upfront stuff, but it doesn't make a difference if you can't deliver the truth. And the truth is, what does it sound like? And that's what she does. She delivers it on a daily basis. So then we're free to go, pick this song, try this, make this work. I'm just going to say this one thing because Dee Dee is much too polite to say it, but Harry Connick Jr., who's from New Orleans, wrote this song that Dee Dee absolutely loves.
He wrote it for me.
It's called One Fine Thing, and it's the first song on the CD.
He wrote it for me. He recorded it in 2013. I heard him performing when he was promoting the CD, and he was on the David Letterman show, and he got up to the piano, and he played that song, and he was playing it, and I said, oh, he wrote that song for me. And the next day, I did. Yeah. I knew that. And the next day, I called my pianist of 14 years, Edsel Gomez, because we were going to be doing a tour that summer with Ramsey Lewis, and I wanted to have some little funky stuff. And I've always loved New Orleans music. And so I said, Edsel, download Harry Connick Jr. Harry Connick Jr.'s One Fine Thing. He said, okay, Dee Dee. I said, do me an arrangement, and I need New Orleans. It's got to be a New Orleans rhythm to it. It's got to have that New Orleans feeling. It's got to be funky, because the story that tells, I could relate to as a dirty old
What's
man.
the story? What is it you can relate to? So
I can relate to the fact that, this person is walking down the street, because it happened to me. It happened to me. I'm up in Harlem. I'm walking up Lenox Avenue, going up to one of my favorite restaurants, Chez Lucienne, and I'm walking with my son, and it's on a Sunday, and we're going to brunch. And we're talking and just giggling and carrying on, and we get like 2 blocks from our building, and we're in the middle of a conversation, and I just stop. And he's like, Mom, what's wrong with you? And I'm just like, mouth open, like, he says, Mama, what is it? And I go, and he looks and he says, oh, I said, that's what I like. And there was this beautiful milk chocolate brown man sitting up against the window of the restaurant, shaved, clean-headed, built, sculpted. Thunder thighs, that tight shirt that fits the muscles, and I was like,
that was the first day we met. That was the first day. Shit's been real good since then. It's been good, baby.
And there you go. When I walk in, I see you, and I'm wondering what it must be like to be you. You are sunrise, you are heaven. You're the reason. This is the best line Harry Connick Jr. wrote. You're the reason why God rested on day 7. You are one fine thing.
Preach the truth.
When I'm dreaming, I love you. And I know that there is just one version of you. Can I have you? Because that's what I That is my song.
Hello.
Hello. So Irvin suggested all of these historical songs from New Orleans, and I said, we got to add Harry Connick Jr.'s One Fine Thing.
I never knew Harry was such a big fan of mine.
I've completely recalibrated this discussion. That may be a Grammy Museum first. But speaking of bringing out the best in you in this process, Irvin produced the record.
Yes, Irvin produced the record.
Which
he had to. I don't know anything about New Orleans.
But you have been well known to produce your own.
I know, and this is the first time I relinquished.
Exactly, and I'm wondering if that kind of gave you a little freedom with respect to just being.
Well, but we weren't doing this for an album.
Mm-hmm.
We were just doing it for the jazz market, but after we decided that we'd make it commercial, he had to finish. Because
Up to him.
This is his place. Well,
Yeah.
that's New Orleans. This is his place. I cannot. One thing that I will not do is pretend to know. And if I do not know, then I am the first person to say I don't know. I don't know.
Well, I think I would add that the magic in producing, first of all, working with someone who has produced records is working with Dee Dee is easy because she clarified what she wanted in her mixes. She clarified exactly what the timbre of her voice should be like. She allowed us to make it more dirty.
I did. When you sent it to me, I said.
How so? When you mean more dirty, when you say more dirty, what do you mean?
Well, when they sent me the first mixes, and I listened to it, I said, it needs to be a little more dirty. It needs to be a little more rough because that's my vision of New Orleans, and that's how I hear the music from New Orleans. It's got to have a little grit in it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I said I want the bass to be a little saturated. And I don't know what else I said.
So she allowed it to be raw, which is very, very different from her records. When you listen to them, like the album covers, they're very clear. There's a lot of clarity, and everything is very intentional. It's artistically beautiful. With this record, it was allowed to be, first of all, we recorded all of the record basically live. In terms of when you're hearing instruments, we're bleeding into one another in a very large studio.
Everybody on the floor playing together.
Yes.
The entire orchestra at one time, which makes a certain type of a sound. And we're actually recording in this beautiful studio called Esplanade Studios in New Orleans. It's actually a church that was destroyed during Katrina that was converted into a studio. As a matter of fact, Snarky Puppy just did a recording there. We know this because our engineer kept making excuses for not getting to our record because Snarky Puppy was Thelonious, you know what I'm saying? So working with Dee Dee on that end, it's easy because when I explain, well, this is what I'm thinking, she could say, okay. But I will say one thing as a producer that I'm really proud that I was able to accomplish on this record was to get Dee Dee to do something new.
Yes.
For someone who's done so many different types of records, I wasn't going to, this isn't her first location record.
This is once we decided it was going to be a commercial product.
Yes.
Well, and what is it that flipped the switch? When did you, what happened that you decided?
I knew it was going to be a commercial project from the beginning.
He says that now.
I knew, look, there is no Dee Dee Bridgewater non-commercial, people aren't going to buy this or want this record. So I knew, and I had the entire band prepared. When she said yes, we have an opportunity to work with a Titan. We took it dead serious.
Yes, they did.
So we brought our
A
A game.
They did.
Yeah.
We brought our A game. So the thing I was really proud of was the tracks on the record that Dee Dee did without the orchestra, making an orchestra of her own with Dee Dee Bridgewater voices.
Did you have to convince Dee Dee that
Not
this
at
all
all.
of a sudden was becoming a commercial project? Or,
No.
what flipped
It
for you?
happened after we'd finished recording and listening back. And I would play it. I played it. I gave it to my daughter. I gave it to Elise Kingsley, my publicist, and I gave it to a couple of girlfriends who I feel are always objective, and everyone said, "Oh no, this has to be commercial." And I mean, I think I called you up. I said, "Oh no, Irvin, this is, this has to be commercial." And so it was after that when we said, "Okay, well, we need to complete it," that Irvin came up with this idea. Okay, go ahead.
Well, the two selections that Dee Dee did where she's singing with herself is just amazing. One, to hear her work with herself. And we actually have all this, we have videos of her going in, she records one track, and she's one voice. It's really amazing. She goes in, she becomes another voice, she becomes a deep voice, she's like, deep voice Dee Dee. Then she's high voice Dee Dee. Then she's talking Dee Dee. Then she's percussion Dee Dee. And then she's like all these Dee Dees that all work with one another. And I'm so glad we didn't do this as the first track.
Yeah, because it would have changed the whole...
That would have been the record. We could have just let Dee Dee go in the studio and do this by herself. And I kid you not, it was so good. When I played it for Ronald Markham, who's the president CEO of the jazz orchestra, who's here, he said, and I played him the first track, he said, "Well, why didn't y'all just do that shit?" That's the first thing he said. Am I right, Ron? Yeah. He said, "Why don't you just do that?" And so what I really love about a record like this, it's enriching for so many different people in so many different ways. One, it's enriching for people in New Orleans who know that their voices are heard and that they have an opportunity to live their special culture in their town. The same opportunity that every American citizen and really every citizen of the world should have to be in the place you call home and not have that question. It has taken the orchestra, the young girl who's 23, named Emily Fredrickson, who arranged the Harry Connick Jr. song, has been all over the world looking at another female titan, understanding that if you want to be out here on the road and live the life as a jazz musician, you can do that, and Dee Dee Bridgewater has afforded that. She's allowed the New Orleans Jazz Orchestra to become one of the forces. It's very rare, one of the forces as a large ensemble in the world. And you listen to the difference of the orchestra, say in 2014, from what it sounds like in 2015, and you can count on one hand the orchestras that sound at the same level as our orchestra. And finally, she gave an opportunity to, a guy from New Orleans who has admired her for so many years, just to be with her and be next to her and love her dearly and be washed down with her music night after night. And let me tell you, it's the best souvenir you can ever have in your life to say, I shared a stage with Dee Dee Bridgewater.
So much of the history and culture of New Orleans is passed from one generation to the next. And so much of what both of you have talked about, not only here tonight, but also in talking about this record, is mentorship. And kind of, playing it forward, passing it forward in terms of the next generation of musicians. And I'm wondering what does mentorship mean to you?
Mentorship for me is kind of like it's mothering, it's nurturing, it's like being a mother. It's like, for me, what it's been is it's allowed me to listen to young musicians, and now that I've got this 45 years of experience, I can go up to somebody and say, "Baby, I would like you to do this. You need to do that kind of thing. Or why don't you let me work with you? Why don't we have conversations? Why don't we go on the road?" The young trumpet player that I produced and whose record is on my label, Theo Croker, another trumpet player. I love trumpet players. I love trumpet players. My father was a trumpet player, so there's, it's that Freudian thing. Maybe not.
But he wasn't the guy in the window.
Maybe not. No, I don't think it is that Freudian. But my first husband is a trumpet player. I love the trumpet.
Yeah.
I think of my voice as a trumpet. I'm with another trumpet player. I love the trumpet. But it's being able to take someone young whose talent you see, and to be able to say, let me help you. Let me help you realize your vision. Let me help you get to the next level of this career that you want to have. Let me help you to formulate a clear picture of what it is you want to be. You know, and that includes not only the music, but the image. What is your sound? What is the sound that you're trying to achieve? Because as a producer, I believe that a good producer gives the artist what the artist is trying to achieve. A good producer, in my opinion, will not have their artist sound like, oh, this album's been produced by. That's a so-and-so production. No, that has defeated the purpose. That is the ego of the producer, in my opinion, in my humble opinion. But for me, a good producer will allow the artist to express what it is they're trying to express, because the producer has the knowledge, has the expertise, and knows how to guide that artist to achieve that final goal. And the thing that was beautiful with Irvin producing me was it is the first time since 1993 that I have let go of the reins, and I felt completely comfortable doing so, because I have worked with this man, I have seen this man's love and his dedication for this city, and I just knew that it was going to be okay. And I mean, for this man to have had the vision to create a jazz orchestra after such a devastating event as Hurricane Katrina, where he lost his father. But to know that the city needed healing, and then to create a big band. People don't do big bands. Big bands are hard to maintain. And then to have his clubs, and just to see him and the love that he has for his city, I said, okay, this is someone that I can put my trust in.
Well, and I want to circle back to the jazz orchestra and the jazz market, because it really does. It first of all, it speaks to your commitment to the community in New Orleans, but more importantly to a certain and very specific musical vision. Tell us a little bit about the genesis of the jazz orchestra and the jazz market.
Well, when I was 18, I flunked out of the University of New Orleans. I was in the jazz program, and I actually wound up in that program because of Ellis Marcellus, who advised me to turn down a full scholarship to Juilliard, to not go there and do what everybody else was doing. And his logic was, he says, look, it's not about a program or where you go. It's really about figuring out what you want to do. And he said, why don't you come on down here to the University of New Orleans and figure out what you want to be? So I went there, and I quickly figured out by never showing up to class that obviously I didn't want to be there. And so I asked
Irvin,
Ellis,
what were you doing?
I was actually, I was touring. So I was playing a lot. I was working with a lot of different musicians and folks all over, and I was trying to be a part of that period of the 90s of those young lions. I graduated high school in 1995, and so I was catching the end of the young lions aspect in jazz, with Joshua Redman and Roy Hargrove and Nicholas Payton and all these guys. So I wanted to be a part of that. And I never really did like the fact that I had to make a decision between college and that opportunity. When I left college, after missing so many classes, I called, I asked Ellis Marcellus, I said, can I have your son Wynton's number? I want to go to New York and I want a place to stay. And he gave me Wynton's number. He said, yeah, give him a call. And I called Wynton and I said, Wynton Marcellus? He said, yeah, this is Wynton Marcellus. I said, I'm a young trumpet player from New Orleans. My name is Irvin Mayfield. He said, yeah, I know who you are. I said, I'm looking for a place to stay. He said, you can stay with me. I said, okay, well, damn. What's the address? 25 Central Park West. And I went to New York, and at the time that I went to New York, and believe me, there's not really that much that's special about that on my end. Wynton always let young musicians stay with him. When I went to New York, he was in the building phase of jazz at Lincoln Center. And on his wall, he had all the principles of what a jazz space should be. He had, number one, all interests should be created equal. Number two was that the sound of the room should be as brilliant as Louis Armstrong's trumpet. Number three was that it should be authentic and real and American. Number four was that it should hug you and it should be welcoming and people should feel able to be themselves. And that just blew my mind that you could have a space that represented something so important and that spaces could be built like that. And it was then, arriving on Winton Sofa where I thought to myself, New Orleans needs an institution or the place that created jazz, like New Orleans, needed an institution or a business or an infrastructure where people believed in this music that these guys who, by the way, were a part of the underclass. You gotta remember when we think about Louis Armstrong and Jello Roll Morton and Sidney Bechet, these are black folks in the early 1900s. We can't even imagine what it would be like at that time. And if you pull up the Times-Picayune's review, which is in the New Orleans jazz market, of what the reviewers and critics thought about jazz, they said that jazz should be ignored. It should be, we should never acknowledge that it came from New Orleans, that it was terrible. And so thinking of that, I knew we needed a space and a place that could really represent the true genius of these folks that, look, it would have been genius if they would have been a part of the aristocracy. But it's amazing to think of what Armstrong did. At 14 years old, being considered a hoodlum who fires a gun in the middle of the street and winds up in a boys' home. Here we are years later with this music that we created, performing it at the Grammy Museum, and I'm sitting next to one of the most beautiful women in the world right now who's an amazing artist, and that's a mandate that was answered by the New Orleans Jazz Orchestra and the people of New Orleans, but really the global people around the world who say, yeah, a jazz place in New Orleans, that makes sense. I'll support that.
So, I don't want to run out. Fair warning, we're going to ask for a couple of questions from the house here in just a second. But before we do that, I want to talk a little bit about influences and advice. Because both of you, I think in your careers, have received mentorship from others and interesting pieces of advice. And I know you've talked about things that Thad Jones has said to you. Tell me a little bit about the advice he gave you very early on.
Thad Jones, first of all, Thad Jones called me Runyon. Runyon in French is kidney. I don't know why I called it. He said, Runyon, learn the melody. Sing the melody. Enunciate. You have to do justice to the people who wrote the song, the composer and the lyricist. The people who are listening need to be reminded, oh yes, this is the melody. Then you can improvise. After you improvise, Runyon, you got to come back to the melody and you finish with the melody. I said, okay. He also told me how to structure a set. He said, start out with something hard-hitting that's gonna grab the audience, and you keep dropping that mic.
Just like that.
Then he said, go to something that's a little softer. He said, maybe a waltz. I don't do any waltzes anymore, but I used to when I first started singing professionally. A waltz or a bossa nova. Then do something, a little swinging, a little more up-tempo. Then do your ballad. Then come back with something hard-hitting, and then just do that until the end. And you take it out with something that's like, that'll blow the people's hats off their heads, And I have always used what Thad Jones told me to do in terms of organizing a set. I have passed, he also told me, he said, do not listen to singers.
Why?
Because, well, he felt, and it's true, he said that my ears were like sponges and that I could imitate a singer if I heard a singer. And he said that if I listened to other singers, then I would just sound like that singer. And he said, if you want to have your own sound, you need to listen to instrumentalists. What is your favorite instrument? The trumpet. Okay, what's your next favorite instrument? The bass. Well, then listen to the trumpet. Listen to the bass and try and develop your scat so that you sound like those instruments. You know, of course, as the years went on, then it morphed to other instruments, but those were the things that he told me, and those are the things that I always say to other singers.
Yeah.
You know, don't listen to me. Don't listen to all these other singers, because when I do master classes and somebody sings, I say, oh, you've been listening to so and so, and so and so, and you can do the same thing with instrumentalists.
Right.
Oh, we know who you've been listening to, because you get so caught up as a young person starting out listening to and saying, oh, I want to sound like that. No, you want to try and create your sound from the beginning. And I try to tell people we all have a unique voice. Our speaking voices are different. You have your speaking voice.
I do.
And I have mine, and Irvin has his. I mean, we all, you can tell, if I listen to you enough, I can say, if I hear you speaking and I don't know it's you, I can say, oh, that's Scott. That's Scott Goldman. Yeah, I know that voice.
I'm feeling better about myself already.
But you know, but it's true. It's true. And so the same thing happens when you listen to singers that you love. They don't sound like anybody else that you've heard. Instrumentalists that you love, they don't sound like anybody else. All of the people that we love have developed their own sound, their own personality. So what I say to people is you have to learn to embrace who you are and the gift that God gave you.
That's a good one. So we're running out of time. I'm gonna ask for one question from the house. Make it a good one. Yes, way in the back. You got it.
That's a lot of pressure.
Yep.
Take it. First, I'd like to thank you for a night at Donna's where you and Kermit had a cutting session. It was so much fun. And then,
Even though the rest of us weren't there. But
as someone from Minneapolis, what are you doing with the symphony up there?
Well, for 5 years, I was the artistic director for jazz for the Minnesota Orchestra. And as you know, they went on a strike. And they went on a strike for a million years, it felt like. And after the strike, fortunately, the orchestra is back. And unfortunately, I am no longer there. But you can now check me out at the Apollo Theater, where I am now doing their jazz programming. And we have a concert on Halloween weekend, on the 30th and 31st. On Halloween, where it's a masquerade party, you can see Dee Dee Bridgewater, Irvin Mayfield, and the New Orleans Jazz Orchestra there. Tickets are available for purchase right now.
Okay. So we got time for one more quick one. Who's got? Yes, sir. Right here.
I was wondering, Dee Dee, if you could talk about what took place earlier this month in Central Park, the reunion of the cast.
Oh, the Wiz. George Faison and I got together and celebrated opening night of the Wiz on January 4th. And George got a cake, and we had champagne, and we reminisced and shared stories that the other person didn't know, and we just had a fabulous time. And then after that, he says, Dee Dee, we've got to do something. And I was like, okay, George, okay. And then I had an idea. That idea didn't pan out, and he says, you know what? I'm just going to do the Wiz in song and dance, because it was going to be difficult for us to have the option to get the book. Charlie Small's music, some of it we couldn't have the right to, but he had ownership of his choreography. And then we were able to go to Charlie Small's estate, and because we were just doing song and dance without the book, they said, okay, you can do the songs. So what we did in Central Park, and then what was done, I only did Central Park, and that was on August 12th. And then on the 13th and 14th, they performed it in the Marcus Garvey Park in Harlem. We basically did the show with Felicia Rashad, who was one of the original Munchkins and my understudy for Glenda. She and George narrated and just loosely told the story of The Wiz, and we would all come out and do the different characters. And it was one of the most beautiful moments in my life to reunite with some of the original dancers. Many of the original cast are no longer here. Stephanie Mills and Hinton Battle were not able to be with us. I think it's wonderful that Stephanie's going to do Auntie M in the NBC musical of The Wiz. But it was kind of like the original members. We were able to pass off to all of these young singers and dancers, you know, bits of information about how it is to perform on stage and movement, and knowing the technical, but also adding the feeling to dance and movement. And it was splendiferous, is all I can say. I was lifted by the dancers in the way that I'd been lifted. I'd totally forgotten that. So when I walked into George and his partner, Thaddeus Shug, bought a firehouse in Harlem, and they call it Faison's Firehouse, and so they have rehearsal studios in there. So I went into the rehearsal studio, and I was just in time for my part, and so he says, Dee Dee, go over there. And you've got 4 dancers, and they're gonna lift you up. And so they get around me, and it's these 4 young children, gorgeous little bodies, so tight. And so mommy's standing there, and he says, okay, and on this beat, lift. And so he says the beat, and they try to lift, and I'm standing there like a log. He said, Dee Dee, you have to plie. And I said, oh, right, plie. So I go into, I don't know, 3rd position, and I'm going, he said, Dee Dee, no, not plie, plie, just bend your knees. I'm like, oh, okay. And then lift when they lift you. I said, oh, okay. And then it was a teeter and a totter. And I'm singing Arrested Body, and I'm going, woo! And he's like, Dee Dee, put the arms out. And I'm like, but they don't have my right cheek. Dee Dee, just sing. And I'm singing, and he's like, okay, now they gotta lower you down. And they lowered me down, these poor babies. They lowered me down, and the 2 guys in the front, you know, their heads kind of go here. And I said, yes. Come to mama. And I held them, and I did not release those 2 hands. And now one of those 2 dancers is my new best friend. But when we did it in Central Park, it was, honey, at my age, you gotta take a thrill where you can get it.
I'm certainly not arguing with you. Well,
it was fabulous.
I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, that puts the absolutely appropriate button on this entire discussion this evening. But much more importantly, Irvin and Dee Dee, we could not be more pleased that you took the time to come here and have a little talk on stage, which has been fantastic. I'm sure these people agree. More importantly, we want to hear this great music. So, ladies and gentlemen, Irvin Mayfield and Dee Dee Bridgewater.
Thanks, Scott. Thank you all so much. Thank you to be here. When I'm walking, I see you, and I'm wondering what it must be like to be you. You're a sunrise, you're heaven. You're the reason why God rested on day 7. you're one fine, fine thing. When I'm dreaming, I love you, and I know that there is just one version of you. Can I have you? I need you. If you tell me where you want to go, oh baby, I will lead you. 'Cause you're one fine, fine thing. I want you now in a real bad way. What have I got to do? I could somehow have a real good day. It all depends on you. So do that no play. I get let down here. I do your day. I been down on that day, I'll be let down, I'll be ready. I day, bomb down to the hero. Until I get you to wrap a wedding band around my finger. 'Cause you're one fine, fine thing. Oh, you're one fine thing. Ooh, you are one fine thing. Oh, baby, you're so fine, you're so fine, you blow my mind. Dig it, dig it, dig it. Ooh, one fine thing. Ow! Oh, you're one fine thing. Oh, baby, let me just rub my hands all through that head. Oh, you're one fine thing.
Dee Dee Bridgewater.
I forgot to tell you all to tape, because I stepped, well, now you know. Anyway, yes, Mr. Irvin Mayfield, one fine thing.
I'm ready. Let's do it.
You ready?
Oh, yeah.
All right. So we're gonna do this number from the CD that is called Whoopin' Blues, featuring Mr. Michael Mayo. You don't need it, right? Yeah.
I got a big fat woman loves me all night long.
Oh, look out now.
I got a big fat woman loves me all night long.
You scared me, baby.